off talking, if you don't mind just opening up and then pass the mic to me.
Yes, ma'am. So I want to thank you guys for showing up for our Notary Gals training today. Today we are going to be talking about the avoiding the unauthorized practice of law. Notary Gals consist of myself, Phyllis Trailer, and my good friend Michelle Riley. I'm in Texas. Michelle is in Alabama, but we work together on projects. So we decided to combine our skills and expertise and create Notary Gals. So again, today we're going to be talking about avoiding the unauthorized practice of law. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please let us know. We just ask that that we don't talk over each other. But this is a free flow of information back and forth. So Michelle, I'll let you get started, bestie.
Thank you so much, Phyllis. And again, welcome to Notary Gals. The topic of unauthorized practice of law, UPL is the acronym, is a topic that to me never gets old and never goes away. Before becoming a notary, I never even heard of UPL. I had no idea what it meant. And then once I became a notary and heard about it, I figured it meant someone pretending to be a lawyer or doing lawyerly duties that had no business doing it. But what I've now since learned is that unauthorized practice of law is not a black and white thing. There's no one definition, one explanation. There are people who feel it's one thing and these are the experts, and then there'll be even some lawyers who will interpret it to be something different. This is why those of you who are signing agents will hear some people say, all signing agents are supposed to do is point and sign here when they are at a closing. And then you'll hear another group of people say, oh no, we're supposed to go in and answer questions and either explain the documents or present the documents. So those of you who are like, wait, I thought it was this, thought it was that, well, welcome to the club. You'll never get one explanation or one answer. Also, UPL is not unique to notaries. It applies to other roles. One notary expert said that it really is difficult to get away from practicing law. And what does practicing law mean? According to one expert, it means giving advice, performing acts for clients in legal matters. It's as broad and general as that, which is why one could argue that licensed real estate agents give advice when they tell a seller to purchase warranty insurance just in case the water heater breaks. Each tax season, tax preparers give advice when they advise their clients about tax deductions. So I say this to say, I agree with the experts who say it's very easy to give advice and people give legal advice all the time. But as it pertains to us notaries and signing agents, I think it is a good idea for us to consider a few things. And on the topic of UPL. And in doing that, I consulted three, I'll call them notary experts. The first is Peter Van Alstyne. He's the founder of the Notary Law Institute. You can read his credentials there on the screen. Because again, what I think it is one thing, but what UPL really is can be something different. I also consulted Michael Closen. He's a favorite of Phyllis Traylor's, and I know that her patron community, some of you have been reading his book as part of your book club. And so, you know, those of you who are her patrons, you know firsthand how smart and informative his book is. And so I read a little bit about what Closen has to say about unauthorized practice of law. And I do think that, well, before I move on to the NNA, I found that Van Alstyne of the three tended to be a little more liberal in his definition. Closen seemed to be middle of the road with his definition of unauthorized practice of law. Then, as you see, there is the National Notary Association. I found them to be most conservative on this subject. And so let's just see what the three of these experts have to say on the topic. The NNA is pretty straightforward in their books, 12 Steps to a Flawless Notarization. They are recommending notaries not to choose certificates or talking about notary certificates. We should not prepare documents or give advice because the NNA feels all of those things are a form of legal advice. They advise that we can get into trouble by being too helpful to signers at meetings. And I definitely agree with that statement about us getting into trouble by being too helpful. The NNA also says that at these notarizations, we would be best off if we would follow the directions that have been provided to us instead of giving instruction or giving directions. Michael Closen, on the topic of unauthorized practice of law, he points out that we notaries can be guilty of it by what comes out of our mouths, by what we put in writing. I'm thinking emails, in our advertisements, that includes our websites, our business cards, in our private communication. And we should know now there really is no private communication anymore. Even emails, and when we're on Zoom and all and typing in chat, there are those are records. And I know when I host meetings, oftentimes what is typed in chat gets recorded and saved as part of the record. And then social media posts. Many of us are in Facebook groups and patron communities, and that information could eventually or one day end up in hands that we did not intend them to be in. And so closing, a statement that really resonated with me is where he says the handling of notarized instruments after notarizations have been completed is beyond the typical duties of notaries and suggests greater involvement than impartial notaries should possess. So he's just pointing out, once we've finished with that notary certificate, doing the journaling, identifying the witness, anything before that and after that falls in a different realm and could be considered, we might be venturing into practicing law. So something to think about. And then finally, Peter Van Alstyne, again, I found his definition to be a little more generous or liberal. He writes, giving legal advice is unavoidable. Offering advice is not the same thing as unauthorized practice of law. He advises knowledgeable and experienced notaries can use their expertise to make recommendations about notarial certificates and may know more about notarial certificate wording than most lawyers. So what he's talking about here is, when we're presented, when notaries are presented with a document that doesn't have a notary certificate section. And I know even in my training in Alabama, I train, hey, look, you can present the different certificates to the signer, but let them choose whether or not they should use the acknowledgement or the jurat or the copy certification. And document it as such. But Peter Van Alstyne is like, you know what? You guys are making too big of a deal about this. Who other than a knowledgeable, experienced notary can give some recommendations? And he further states, the jurat seems to be more of an all-encompassing certificate, and it as opposed to the acknowledgement. So I was really surprised to read that. So where does that leave us? It got me to thinking, and to be honest, it helped me feel better about this subject. It helped me not to be so uptight about it, but yet there's still some things that we should and should not do. I perform a lot of general notary work, and I am almost always asked this question right after I've notarized a power of attorney. Is my power of attorney now legal? Now that I have sealed it, signed it, returned it, Michelle, so now this is legal, right? All three sources are clear and in sync on this. We should avoid answering that question. We should also avoid answering, does my mother need witnesses to her will? Especially when they're drafting it themselves or they bought it, one of those prepackaged deals. We shouldn't have it involved a lawyer. We should not answer that question. Do you think this bill of sale that I have written out is valid or sufficient? The recommendation is not to go there. And I stand behind that as well. Peter Van Alstyne writes in his book, The Notary Encyclopedia, the ultimate protection against liability for the unauthorized practice of law, become as knowledgeable as possible on notary law, procedures, and duty. And I know this is something that Phyllis, I hear her say repeatedly. And those of you who have taken her training, and if you've taken my training, you've heard me say this as well. And we stress it because, unfortunately, there are many notaries who still won't study the notary law. Keep in mind, our laws change. They may not change every year, but in many states, every 5 years or so, there could be a tweak. And it is so important that we go back to it, even whether there's a change or not, and reread it, because that's our safe haven. As long as we limit ourselves to those responsibilities, those processes, we don't need to worry about unauthorized practice of law. But whenever we step outside of that, we shouldn't be frightened, but we need to be more careful about the advice that we give and when we give it and to whom we give it to. Thoughts from any of you that are here live on those comments? Anything at all?
I like the way you presented the different views of the different experts on this, because they're different, but they're not conflicting really. They're just different in their degree of how do I want to say it, adhering to that, I guess, because like you said, Van Alstyne was a little bit more liberal, and I noticed that too in his encyclopedia and in his other book, that smaller one, the Notary Law Procedures and Ethics. He gives you a little leeway, and then he also, says, be careful, but sometimes you almost can't help crossing that line.
You're
And is it
right.
really against the law if you cross that line? That, to me, that's the impression I got from reading Van Alstyne. You know, Sometimes you are going to cross the line. It's just inevitable. But just be careful. To
Yes.
me, that's what he's saying. And like you said, the NNA is like, okay, don't do it. Don't even.
Right. But I cut them a little slack there, Phyllis, because because of their size, they're so big and they're hitting all 50 states and they're dealing with a lot of new notaries. And again, they know those notaries, probably more than half, are not spending time with their state laws. So I guess they choose to err on the side of caution because being who they are, they're an easier target liability wise for them to, well, the NNA told me I could do it. And so
Yeah.
I think it's safest that they take the route that they take. But I was shocked when Val Alstyne said, yeah, if someone has a form, there's no certificate, and they want to know what to do, it's okay if you let them know, well, hey, it's going to either be an acknowledgement of jurat. Why don't you go with the jurat? That way I'm putting you under oath and watching you sign. And again, and before this week, I would not have said that out loud to anyone.
And Texas notaries, that's a no-no. Because
Okay,
still, no matter what somebody says, expert says, you still have to follow your state laws,
absolutely.
you know.
And does
So,
the state laws just say no choosing?
yes, the state
Okay.
laws are going to always trump anything any expert says.
Oh, well, yeah, I just didn't know what the law says. So your
Uh-huh.
handbook,
Yeah.
my handbook, our handbook in Alabama doesn't even address it.
Hmm. Yeah. So, but go ahead, Wanda.
I would just like to say too, just what from the Van, how do you pronounce his name? Van Alstyne.
Balancing.
It's scary. The thing that helps me with the notary part is because the same situation with state of Texas realtors, that we are not practicing law. But on the flip side of that, excuse me, it's kind of hard to tell a client that. But you have to tell them I can't practice law. You know, Even when I'm referring a client to someone, I have to give them 3 referrals. I can't say, oh yeah, use this guy, use this appraiser, use this inspector. We have to give a person 3 different choices for them to choose. We cannot, whether it's my son, my daddy, my whomever, we cannot do that. So with listening to the notary, and that is kind of scary what you said, Michelle, because it's like, no holds barred. But it's even more scary because there's so many other states opposed to Texas that are not as strict. And so that's going to cause a lot of issues for a lot of people, young or old, that just getting into any type of environment that where things are against the law, if you will. That's where your license is could be up for grabs.
That's why it's so important to know your state laws. I mean, that can never emphasize that enough. You have to know your state laws. You have to know what you can and cannot do. Our state laws have a lot of gray areas, a lot of areas that aren't covered. That's when these best practices come into play. Is that my computer making all that noise?
I think people are trying to get in, and I don't know if they had the same issue that I had, because the link took me to something which I was sharing with you all earlier that was on June the 12th that Michelle did. And I
And
saw
see, and
Christine
I
said,
checked the link.
I didn't hear
I,
you.
yeah, I went in there and checked the link, and it was the right link. I saw everything that I put up. Angela, did you have problems logging in?
Yes.
No, it worked perfectly.
Okay, what about you,
I'm using
Kathy?
Windows, so that thing came up, says go to opener, and then it checked your mic and your video, and it let me in.
Kathy, did you have problems?
Yeah, I had to kind of search around. It said you'd be sent an email, um, sending you the link when I had, RSVP'd. So yeah, but I found it.
Okay. Narissa, you had a problem logging in? I don't know
Good
how to.
morning, ma'am. I was able to get directly in.
Okay, okay, thank you. I don't know. Yeah, because I just just copied and pasted directly from GoToMeeting. So
I
I
think
don't
what I found from not being able to get in earlier is that go through and put the little programs on your laptop first, and just if it's GoToMeeting this week or Zoom next week, or next week it's your knitting group and it's something else, they're already on there. Because half
know.
of my problem was clicking the link, the invite, and Windows wanting to download something.
Oh, okay.
Not
Yeah,
having to do that made it a lot easier.
okay.
Miss Phyllis, Sharon Robinson is having the same thing. She said she was having an issue. I'm looking on my cell phone to see who's trying to get in. Christina's having an issue. Christina and Sharon are trying to get in.
Okay, let me go back to the I don't know what I did wrong. Let me
I
go
don't
back.
think it's you. I think it's technology. That's just my opinion.
I agree.
Hey, I'm here for it. Let's all blame the computer.
Exactly. And I'm sending them a message, let them know that you're trying.
I'm trying to fix it. Let's see. Because I was like, it's not enough patrons in here.
Right. Right.
Okay, let me just try to, let me see.
So
Log.
while Phyllis is doing that, I've got a question for those of you who are signing agents. How far do you go in your closings as far as answering questions, explaining documents? What's your comfort levels?
I haven't had a lot of them, and not a lot of questions, but I have said to them, you might want to call your lender, or you might want to call your realtor. I said, because I can't give you advice. I said, I'm here to sign your documents, notarize your documents. I said, but I can't tell you what to do. And that's the way I do it.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's right or wrong with that. I don't like to give too much information.
Thank you, Wanda. Anyone else?
I haven't done any closings yet, but
Any general
I'm
notary
still
work?
nervous because the training and the like last night I just finished my continuing education. The thing that concerns me is the inconsistency and the ambiguity between who's somebody saying do this and somebody saying do that. Now the documentation says no, you don't answer any questions. You get on the phone with either the closing agent or the signing service that hired you. But if it's 8 o'clock at night, who do you call? They're closed. So I can see how people would go over out of bounds a little bit because you need to get it done. You know what needs to be done. You just know you're not supposed to say it. That's what makes me nervous. I don't know how I would respond in that situation.
Thank you. I what I take from all of this is what's most important is whatever comes out of our mouths needs to be correct. Because usually with unauthorized practice of
Parenting.
law, it isn't a real problem until you're giving out wrong information. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying just go out there and have at it, but be knowledgeable. Remember, that's what Van Alstyne keeps stressing, at least so that, and it's, you can't avoid, you will step out of, you will go a little further in some closings, and you're going to have to. When, as you said, it's 8 o'clock at night, I don't care if it's even 3 in the afternoon. Sometimes no one is going to be available. So for me, if I was confident in the answer, I would give an answer to move that right along. And that's how I did it. Now, there was no wiggle room for me when it came into discussing those interest rates and payoff amounts. I was very comfortable saying, these payoff amounts could change because by closing date, the interest could be a little more, a little less. So, that could change by a little bit. But other than that, I didn't go any further than that. So just being confident in what you do know and what you're saying. Anyone else?
Well, I'm just the opposite of Michelle. I wouldn't discuss it with them.
What part?
Yeah.
What you discuss?
You know, telling them they're discussing interest rates, anything. I'm like, if you have any questions about anything, we have to stop, try to get a hold of somebody. And if we can't and you're not comfortable signing, then we're not going to sign. I just wouldn't, I just, you know, I just didn't feel comfortable discussing it with them. And I have a real estate background, but being there as a notary signing agent, I just didn't want them to say, well, my notary said that, this could happen, that could happen,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And even though I knew that there's a possibility that it could happen, I didn't want to cross that line, and that's just me. I
Which
wanted to
is
make sure
safe.
that I didn't cross the line.
Yeah, that's safe.
Yeah, and that's just me being safe, so you just have to just be careful. Just be careful. And so, yes, Angela, there will be times when nobody will answer the phone. And if nobody answers the phone, then you just kind of have to make a decision. Well, you don't have to make the decision, the signer does, because you're there just to facilitate the signing. And you can just tell the signer, you know what, I can't reach anybody right now, you know, and especially if it's a refi when they have a 3-day rescission period, you can let them know you get 3 days to change your mind, so you can sign now, and later on, maybe the next day, you can get a hold of your lending officer and ask those questions. But because ultimately it's going to be up to signer's choice. Either they want to sign or they don't. They want to move forward or they don't. You can't make them move forward. You can try to get those answers from them. And those answers should come from either their lender or their title company, depending on what the question is. So, I mean, I don't care. It could be, like Michelle said, it could be 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you might not be able to get somebody, especially when it's at the end of the month, and everybody's super busy. You might not get anybody. I mean, the lender knows that they have a sign-in going on. They should be somewhere, you know, they should be available. They know they have a loan closing. They should make sure that they're available at that time to answer questions, but that doesn't always happen. So if somebody doesn't want to sign, if we can't get a hold of somebody, then we still can't make the decision on whether to proceed or not to proceed. It's going to be up to the signer. The one good thing about it, like I said, if it's a refi on their primary residence, usually they will have that 3-day rescission period. And so you can tell them, you got 3 days to change your mind. And a lot of time when they have that, having that knowledge will comfort them in a way that they're willing to go ahead and move forward.
Phyllis,
Yeah, Kathy.
shouldn't the client be given those papers prior to the closing to look over?
In a perfect world, yes.
Because I know when my daughter bought her last house, those were sent to her on, through the computer, and she looked over it, and we looked over it, and we went to the signing, and the signing agent said, sign here, do it like this, and do it like that, and we were done.
And that's when everything falls into place and it's working perfectly, that will happen. But I guarantee you, Kathy, that everything does not work perfectly. In
Right,
fact, most of the time it doesn't.
right.
And that's just the nature of the business that we're in.
You're
'Cause by law, they're supposed to get that closing disclosure, what, 3 days before closing? And the lender's supposed to go over that with them. So when they come to closing, they shouldn't have any questions. That closing statement that they have, most of the signers will bring that closing statement, that closing disclosure with them to the signing table. So they can make sure that it matches the one that's in that loan package. So they shouldn't have any questions. But how many times has that happened versus the other way around?
My daughter's signing agent didn't give her any time to ask any questions.
See,
She had 18 more to do that day. She was ready to get going and get out of there
and that's
to
so
move to the next
unprofessional.
one.
That's so unprofessional.
But she was fine, but there just wasn't all of this time for,
That's
you know, Han-
unprofessional. That's
Hannah
not
acknowledged,
time, Kathy.
well, Hannah acknowledged that she had seen the papers and she understood them. But yeah,
Mm-mm. That's not that. When I did my closing on my house, I had the worst signing agent. I had the signing agent from hell. The guy showed up because we were sellers. The guy showed up. First, he showed up when he called to confirm the appointment. He let me know that he was going to be late because he had somebody before me. So he let me know that he was going to be late. I said, okay. Why did you take this signing if you knew you had another signing before me? That's what I'm thinking because I'm a signing agent and I wouldn't have done it that way. But anyway, he showed up late. Then he wanted to only hand me the signature page of each document because he had so many signings to go through that day. And I told him that's not how it works. You're going to give me the entire document so I can review the entire document. Well, I'm just trying to hurry up and get through. I don't care about your schedule. I want to make sure I know what I'm signing. And that's what we're paying you for. So you have a ethical responsibility as a notary to service your clients. When you accept that assignment to do that closing, you need to make sure you have enough time to get through that closing properly and professionally. That's your responsibility. And if you can't do it, then you shouldn't be in this business, period. That's just how I feel about it. I know everybody's like volume, volume, volume. Yes, volume. That's how you're going to make your money. But at the same time, you need to take care of the clients. That's what you're being hired for. I get upset when I think about that again. So let's talk about something else. But anyway, we're talking about the unauthorized practice of law. We just have to be careful. Don't cross that line. Just be careful. Don't try to give any advice. Again, if nobody's there for you to talk to them, then ask your signers if they want to continue. Okay, any other comments, concerns? Yes, Wanda.
With the conversation we're just having, I was thinking when we accept an assignment for signing, would we be out of order if we ask the company who is assigning us the job, what is your contact information in the event that your customer needs you at a crucial time? Or is that, or don't even worry about that?
No, they should provide it to you. They should that should be in your confirmation once you accept that
Okay.
assignment. Yeah.
But I'm saying like after 8 o'clock at night, people get off of work, you get off at 6, traffic, just like now, I have a client now, supposed to meet somebody, can't get there to 12:50 opposed to 12, so that we can confirm with the signing company that, okay, what number can your client call in case there's an issue? We can do that. Okay, thank you.
Yes. That's a great way. Like I said, they usually provide you that information in the confirmation, but you're asking for after hours. So if you can't reach them at the office, how can I reach you? It's best to have a direct cell phone number. I don't care what they say. What you
And
say,
I
Michelle?
am never reluctant to use that number. I don't think twice. Now, before I do think twice. Before I call, I make sure the answer isn't somewhere visible, either in my instructions or in the documents where I can say, oh, here, look, read this. I think this answers your question. But if it's a question that I can't answer or shouldn't be answering, I will call you at 2 a.m. and expect you to answer the phone if you're my after hours contact. I will blow up that phone number to get you to answer. I feel it's that important.
I agree, Michelle.
Thank you.
I agree. Any other comments, concerns, questions? I just want to emphasize to everybody, that yes, we are signing agents. We do want to make a living, doing this, but be careful doing it too. Don't overbook yourself. There's only so many appointments you're going to physically be able to do properly in a day. I don't care. Don't just don't get into the hype about making the 6 figures. If you can make 6 figures, that's fine, as long as you're still doing your job properly at the same time. I think that's more important than anything else.
I agree with you, Phyllis. I find that I run into the gray areas of unauthorized practice of law more with general notary work than signing agent work. That's been my experience. I don't have a real estate background. I'm not a homeowner. So like some of you who have purchased property many times, you're familiar with many of those documents. You've seen them before. You can kind of apply it to yourselves. And so I don't venture far at all when it comes to real estate closings. But where I have to be more careful is, again, with the general notary work. For whatever reason, I'm more familiar with those kind of documents. And so I encourage you to keep that in mind, those of you who are strictly mobile notaries. The signers truly are looking to you as the expert. And it's imperative that you continue to remind them that you aren't the expert on that document. You're the notary expert, but you're not the expert on the legal and what's in that legal document and what that document does and doesn't do.
Yeah, and back to what we were discussing earlier, it is a little touchy about crossing the line when it comes to the general notary too, about what we can and can't say. I had a very good friend of mine call me today, and she was telling me that she needed a power of attorney to handle the banking for her husband, who is ill. And she asked me, would I be able to come out and notarize his signature? And I told her, sure. I asked her, I said, do you have the document already? And is it filled out? She said, yes, I have one. She said, I'll make sure it's filled out. And at the last minute, I thought, okay. And I don't know, and I'm just being totally honest. Hopefully, I did not cross the line, because now that I think about it, here I am admitting it online in front of everybody. But anyway, I told her, I said, you know what? Check with your bank to make sure that they don't have their own special power of attorney. Because sometimes banks have their own special power of attorneys and they won't accept just a general power of attorney. And she said, really? I said, yeah. I said, I don't know, if your bank is like that, but you just want to check just to make sure, and because I've done this so many times, I know this, Now, could that in some way be construed as giving legal advice? I don't know. I mean, I didn't feel like it, but then after going through all this conversation we had this morning, I'm thinking, did I cross the line by suggesting that?
No. Why? No. That's practical advice.
Yeah.
That is, and that's the advice I give everyone, because I got tired of notarizing power of attorney documents and then finding out 3 days later, a week later, that the bank wouldn't accept it. This is a real problem, folks, a real problem. And so to me, I'm giving good customer service. You didn't tell them, Phyllis, I won't notarize your document, or it's not. No, you said check. Make sure you don't have to go through this process again. I don't think that's legal advice.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sharon.
Should that be for all power of attorneys? Ask the person at first that they check with their bank, because I wouldn't have known to ask if I have one coming up. I wouldn't have known to ask that question. The reason I'm asking is my cousin asked me to do one. She's getting one together for her mother. It's a medical and a durable power of attorney. I have no interest in it. I'm not getting anything from it. And so she asked me to do it for her mother. And so is that something I need to ask her?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If she's doing it, if one of the reasons that she needs the power of attorney is to do financial transactions for that for that for the agent
Uh-huh.
at a specific financial institution, some financial institutions have their own power of attorneys.
Okay.
That's the only one that they will accept. So you have to use that power. The client has to use that power of attorney provided by that financial institution.
Because I think she wants me to notarize a durable and a medical. So I will get with her and I'll ask her because those go through the bank. I guess I'm trying to figure out.
Well, you find like the reason why I told my client that is because she told me, she said, I need a power of attorney to do banking
Oh,
for
okay.
my husband. She said, so I have the power of, so I asked her, I said, do you have the power of attorney? She said, yes, I have a power of attorney. I said, well, just make sure that it's filled out. Then I said, well, since it's a power of attorney for banking,
Okay.
make sure that you check with your financial institution to make sure that they will accept that one, or they might have their own power of attorney.
Okay.
Some financial institutions, and that's just something you learn as you're doing general notary work. You'll
Okay.
do a power of attorney for somebody, and they take it to the bank, and the bank won't accept it. The bank will say you have to use ours.
Yeah. I
So
will
that's just
check.
something you learn as you go along.
That's good to know. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
hmm So yeah, some things you just don't know until you just start doing this. Unfortunately, I mean, there's no way to cover everything because you it doesn't come up until something doesn't work the way you thought it was going to work. Right, Michelle?
Right. And one other thing that I've heard from is that an attorney might say, well, why won't the bank accept it? They should accept it. And they probably should, but the bank has its rules. So that's why it's not to say the power of attorney is faulty. And so instead of having our customers get caught in this catch 22, well, my attorney says it should work, but the bank won't accept. Okay, you got to figure something out, person. I'll notarize whatever you want me to notarize, but if I were in their shoes, I want to cover my bases. So what's the harm in me saying, hey, look, this is my power of attorney that I'm going to get notarized. Look it over. Will this accomplish what I need done? And you know what? Some of my customers have been told that the bank told them, you don't need to go through all that. All we'll do is add you to the account as a signer. Oh, really? And so in some instances, the bank representative will have some other alternatives that will help them out. So there's no one answer that's going to fit everybody's situation. And that's another reason why we shouldn't try to solve everyone's problem, but we can share with them our knowledge and our experience and to help them.
Michelle
Hey,
hit the nail on the head. Go ahead,
Phyllis,
Kathy. Uh-huh.
I've dealt with a lot of power of attorneys, unfortunately, over the last years that were done by attorneys. Um, and I've never had a problem in dealing with the banking people, with the ones that were drawn up by attorneys.
That's
So, yeah, I mean, I've dealt with our business banks and with our personal banks and with my mom's banks, and they were all different. and we never had a problem with a legal document filled out, by an attorney for that. So I guess I'll check from now on, but it's been 10, 12 years of doing this and I've not had an issue.
That's good. That's good.
But they've all been drawn up by an attorney.
Uh-huh. That's
Yeah.
great.
And that's the key, Kathy. So many people don't want to go through an attorney.
Correct.
They want to cut the corner. They want to log online and download. They want to go to Staples and Office Depot and my auntie used this. Those are the ones, because same with me, Kathy, when they go and pay for it to be done properly, in my opinion, there haven't been problems with banks accepting them here in Alabama either. But more than half of the requests that I have done, they have not wanted to pay an attorney to draw up the documents.
That's a
Correct.
good point. That's a good point. I didn't even think about that aspect, but you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yes, Wanda.
I just wanted to say I did that for my mother, and I went straight to an attorney. I never thought about going anywhere else. I mean, I really didn't, and I'm glad I didn't, because I didn't realize all this stuff is going on just to get a document notarized. This is great. Thank you.
Yeah, the internet has done a lot of good and I feel a lot of damage too. Even you're in real estate, Wanda. There are people who probably feel like, why should I hire Wanda I'll sell my own house, keep the money. And then they run into all these, well, I didn't know. The do-it-yourself, this is the DIY period of time. And there's a price to pay when we don't hire experts.
I tell you, I have a background in real estate, and I did not hesitate to get a realtor to help me sell my house, and I did not hesitate to find a realtor to help me buy my next house. Right, Wanda? Yeah.
Go ahead, Estelle. So sorry.
No,
Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, it just saves you the headache, and you're paying for that expertise, and I don't care. I mean, just because I have a real estate background, I'm not an expert in Texas real estate. I got my real estate license when I was in Oklahoma.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna say, well, I did it in Oklahoma, so I can do it in Texas. No, because if you mess up something with a big purchase like that, man, if you end up the money you think you're saving, you end up spending trying to correct that mistake. So it's just not even worth it.
Right.
And that you will, like Michelle said, you will find a lot of people that are trying to cut corners and save money by trying to get the notary to provide legal advice versus going to an attorney.
Right.
But that's not what we're there for. We're not their shortcut. They're just to notarize their signature, and that's it. When it comes to the legal stuff, let the attorneys handle it.
That's right. That's
You had a question, Angela?
I've been triggered. That conversation, the question I brought up about ethics a couple weeks ago when we were talking about the book, came up again this past week, in that I know I'm a notary. He doesn't know I'm a notary. He asked me to do something that to me was incorrect and illegal and unethical. I could have told him not to do it, but I didn't say anything because I don't want to be involved in it. Now, if it comes back to him, the fact that nobody involved knows I'm a notary should work in my favor, correct? Because all I did was act in the clerical perspective. I mean, I know I'm being vague, but
And
Yeah,
stay
um,
vague. Be very
say
vague.
for say
be,
for
be
instance,
be very vague because this is recorded. So you want to be very vague. Uh, yeah, I wouldn't
okay,
be able to, since I'm not an attorney, I couldn't tell you that, to be honest with you.
because
Uh,
it seems like if I had, and it ran through my head, well, I could tell him this, but I'm not an attorney. I'm not privy to this piece of litigation that's going on. He has to have read the document and saw this big old paragraph saying you can't modify this document. It says right there, you can't modify it. If you modify it, it's no longer certified. So, Angela, modify this, hypothetically. And then it's a document that has to be notarized to say that what you wrote on it, because you're supposed to handwrite on it, is true to your best knowledge and these are my words, blah, blah, blah. This person may or may not have asked for a digital signature to be put on this document, on the notarial certificate that's being sent to a third party. So in my head, I'm thinking if somebody were to put a digital signature on a pre-printed acknowledgement attached to this other document, you're not supposed to modify and send it to, how's the notary going to do anything with that? You're not going to be standing in front of the notary. Can you even acknowledge that a JPEG added to a PDF, for example, was your signature? You don't know what happened to it in the interim. So if someone were to speak up in that situation, is that the unauthorized practice of law, or is that just good common sense that you can't do that?
I really can't tell you.
I don't know. I didn't
Yeah.
follow the question, to be perfectly honest with you, but
Okay,
I would, yeah, I don't know.
I
I
can be
wouldn't
more
worry about
transparent so that it makes sense. Okay, so if somebody gave a
it. Before you
deposition,
do, before you do, again,
Not on record.
remember it's recorded, it's going out on YouTube. I don't recommend you do.
oh, okay,
I really don't, to
okay,
protect you.
Yeah. You don't want to, because anybody could see this.
okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
okay. It was weird to me.
Yeah.
And just keep in mind that, yeah, there, all we would do is be able to guess, and our guesses won't amount to a hill of beans when all is said and done. I do think, especially in general notary work, that temptation is there to problem solve, to fix, to, and we go too far. We go too far. In preparing for today's topic, what I kept seeing from Closen and Van Alstine is notaries. First and foremost, focus on the certificate. If what is in the certificate, what it is true as it pertains to the document, that's our safe zone. We've got to try not to think beyond that. Now, have there been times when while during a notarization, the signer has clearly said to me, the sky is blue, and I'm about to sign a document that says the sky is red and it's a jurat. I mean, so you follow me? If I know for sure, due to conversations, that what the signer says is true, does not complement what's in the document, I remind him, I've got to put you under oath. And if it's clear you're lying to me, I'm halting the notarization. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But other than that, it's not my prerogative.
Okay.
Yeah. We have to, I always say, just stay in your lane and you'll be fine.
I try. Sometimes it's hard though, because if somebody's doing something stupid, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to
You
see
know,
that.
Uh-huh. That that notarial certificate is what we're responsible for. We just keep that in mind. Good conversation. Any other questions, comments? Yeah, Wanda.
I'd like to comment for Angela. I can understand to a degree where her position is and how she feels, because she's all about right. But you have to think of self first. What is Angela doing right? You have to be able to sleep. You can't take on yourself the wrong of someone else is doing. It's just, it's just like whatever. And just a side note, back to Michelle and Miss Phyllis, that in the state of Texas, what Miss Phyllis was saying earlier about getting a realtor versus doing it herself, Texas laws are, I believe, are harder than any other laws. I can go to any other state and become a realtor. But if you come to Texas, and what I'm learning and seeing and hearing from you all, same thing with notaries, you can't just walk in here and become a notary or realtor. They couldn't care less how many years in another state you had your license. You have to go through the same process. There's no walk-in. There's a whole process, and I was thinking about Michelle and some of the things when she was talking about the gentleman, the very, Dr. Clausen and what have you, that there are these issues at some point that's kind of teeter on right. And so I believe, y'all please correct me, that if we stay close to being on right, then we won't worry about their teetering.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not. No, I'm not doing that. Thank you. You need to, whatever. But I think if we ourselves teeter on what we know is what's right, I think it'd be a lot easier on all of us, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Very good points, Wanda.
Yep. And I think one of them said that. I think one of the statements that Michelle showed in one of the slides said that too. I can't remember if it was Professor Clausen or if it was Professor Clausen or if it was Van Alstyne, but I think I remember seeing that. Yeah. I mean, just as long as we're doing what's right, we're good. We're good to go. We are good to go. Any other comments? This has been a great discussion, you guys.
It's not a popularity contest, so you have to understand that you couldn't care less if somebody doesn't like you because you're doing right.
But I also think too, as a notary, uh, a lot of notaries. Well, I'll just say myself as a notary. I'm just I got into being a notary so I could help people. So I have that helping, that caring nature. So when I see somebody struggling with something and I know the answer so they won't have to struggle, I want to help them. And I have to remember, Phyllis, you can't do that. You're crossing the line. They have to get through this struggle on their own. But it's the caring nature in me as a notary to want to solve that problem for them. You know, I I remember when I first started doing this, and I remember joining Brenda's. Well, it wasn't when I first started doing this, but I remember the first notary Facebook I joined was Brenda Stone's Facebook group for Texas notaries. And Brenda used to always say she wouldn't notarize wills unless they were created by an attorney. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand that. I used to say to myself, that just makes no sense. You know, And then as I started doing this longer and, really getting into it, I was like, oh, now I see why she's saying that. It all makes sense. And I have the same philosophy now. If it wasn't created by an attorney, I don't want to I don't want to have anything to do with it because there's so many legal ramifications involved with wills. People bring those documents in, and if it wasn't created by an attorney or somebody who knew what they were talking about, they have no clue as to what they're doing. But they expect you as the notary to guide them through it. And that's not our job. And so you're just crossing all kinds of lines with that if that uh, if that will wasn't created by an attorney. Because the signers, the witnesses, everybody involved has no clue as to what they're doing.
Oh, that's
I remember when I was a kid and my mom and dad had an attorney draw up a will. And I still remember that I was probably 9 or 10. And so when I married and I worked at a law firm, we drew up a will. Um, and then it's just been something that it was impressed upon me that an attorney does that. And being a business owner, and those legal documents have to be in place by someone that's an attorney. Um, it just floors me how many people don't have those things in place. Just like my stepson, they have a kid, they don't have their wills in place and their documents in place. And it's very important to have that attorney do that.
Exactly,
And
Kathy.
it's really a simple, I mean, it's not, it's better to pay just a little extra money, and they can be very reasonable in their packages that they do for you, and have it right than leave behind a problem for the people when you're gone. That's just been my thing. So
Exactly. I agree.
Marie?
You had a statement.
That's a good note to add to your website because for general notary work, I had kind of decided that I was not going to notarize wills, but that's something that I could add that I will only notarize wills that have been created by an attorney. So that lets them know when they go to my website and they see wills, they're going to know if I did not go to an attorney to get this created, then she's not going to notarize it. And that might be something I might want to do for power of attorneys, just to kind of cover myself. So
Yeah.
that's something I'm going to add to my website when I get it done, that those going to be the two asterisks. That's the only way that I will notarize a POA or a will, that it has been created by an attorney. That's
but
it.
when you're in that attorney's office and you're going over those documents, they have their own notaries.
Not always.
Not always.
Well,
No,
You-
no.
There's a lot of attorneys that don't have their own notaries. It's a lot of attorneys that use mobile notaries. A lot.
That's correct. Yeah, I've done quite a few for, a couple of attorneys' offices. They'll just contract me out to do theirs for them.
Hey, Marie, I've added quit claim deeds. I don't know if Texas uses quit claim deeds to convey property, but that's another document that I stopped notarizing unless it was drafted by an attorney. And kudos to you. I think that is a wise move that you're taking because, and we talked about it already. But so when it's been drafted by an attorney, as soon as a question comes up at the notary appointment, I say, let's get your attorney on the phone. And I just sit back and relax, and she'll put him or her on speaker, and we get the right answer. Even how old this is,
Yeah.
what color ink, all of that.
Mhm.
Take that on,
Mhm.
and everyone's happy.
Mhm. I'm gonna add quick claim deeds. I don't know if Texas does. Well, that's a real estate thing, and I mean,
Yeah,
land.
they do quick claim deeds.
Okay, but I'm gonna do that. It's a good idea. So at
One
least when that customer comes to me, they already know, and if they haven't, out if it's a will or like you said, a POA or quick claim deed, I'm gonna ask them, has this been drafted by an attorney? That's the only way I can notarize it.
Mhm.
Marie, that's great. I'm gonna hitchhike right on the back of you.
Yeah, I'm so glad.
So much.
Yeah, I'm so glad because now that's something I will do.
Mhm. One
That's great.
attorney gave my client advice that it was okay for her relatives to serve as witnesses, and that was a will. And see, in my notary mind, I would have thought differently, but I did not want to argue with them. I heard them. I put that in my journal. I didn't have to, but I chose to. And the matter was closed, and it wasn't my problem. If a problem comes up, hey, the lawyer was called and told the woman to use her sister as a witness. So I didn't lose any sleep over that.
Yeah. I mean, this has been a great conversation. Anybody else got any comments, concerns? We're talking about the unauthorized practice of law, and we've hit some great points.
Hey, Phyllis, one more thing.
Yeah, Kathy.
What about those forms that you can get from a hospital? They'll give you a packet that has the durable power of attorney, well, the medical directives and those things. Should we
Yeah.
just accept that those have been drawn up by the attorneys for that hospital?
Those are usually state forms. I know exactly
Okay.
what you're talking about. I do those all the time.
Okay. All
I
right.
haven't had any problems doing those. I know
Okay.
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
All righty. Thank you.
hmm Usually the caseworkers or the social workers have those forms, then they need those forms completed by the patient in the hospital. So somebody can serve as be given medical power of attorney. Somebody they have a physician's directive in case something happens to the patient. The do not resuscitate paperwork and stuff like that. So I do them. Somebody else might have a problem with doing them, but I don't. I never had a problem with doing them.
It's very handy to have those while you're in a
Mhm.
crisis situation. If you don't have them, it's a big help to have those from the
Exactly.
hospital.
Exactly. You're correct. Any other comments, concerns? Anything else you want us to address? Like I said, this was a really great conversation. I am so sorry you guys had problems logging in. I don't know what happened with the login. Um, I'll try to do better next time. But we did record this, so you'll have access. All the patrons will anybody have access to this one because this is going to be on YouTube. Because this is Notary Gals. So even if you're not a patron, you'll have access to this one. Okay, I want to thank Michelle for her great presentation, comparing the different experts, the different experts' ideology on unauthorized practice of law. I never thought about comparing those like that. So I really like that. And it does make you think when you take a look at it like that. So, but remember, we always follow our state laws. no matter what anybody else says. State laws trump everything and anything. Okay, Michelle, you have any last parting words?
I don't, but just it's always good to see you all, especially those of you patrons who show up each and every time, and just appreciate you spending this time with us with Notary Gals.
We do, and what is our next training on Notary Gals? What is it going to be, Michelle?
I don't think we've confirmed it yet.
Oh, we haven't confirmed it yet. Okay, so we can't share the topic, but it's going to be a good one when we confirm it. But we haven't confirmed it yet. But we do have something really exciting in the works. So, and I will do a better job at posting the link for Notary Gals. So make sure everybody can get here as soon as we get started. And again, thank you so much for joining us. And that's all we have for this Saturday for Notary Gals. You guys have a wonderful weekend, and I'll let you know as soon as I get this posted on the Notary Gals YouTube channel. Take
Thank you,
care.
lady. This was great. This was worth the hassle trying to get in.
Yes, it was. This is great.
Thank you.
I'm glad I didn't miss
Have a
it.
great weekend, everyone.
Be
You
safe.
guys
Y'all be
take care.
careful.
Everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.